Hello, my name is Abe Zapata Jr., and I was the workshop facilitator for the 2019 Eastside Queer Stories Workshop. I'm excited to be here interviewing the amazing playwright of what to do when you're caught in the middle of a wildfire, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Noah Lashly, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the playwright of What to Do When You're Caught in the Middle of a Wildfire.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with me today, over Zoom, of course.
Yeah.
How are you doing today, Noah?
I am doing pretty well. I can't complain. I'm very caffeinated, but I'm good.
Yeah, so that's good. Not too jittery, though, I hope. Okay.
No.
The listeners just heard your amazing story, the amazing play, really funny stuff. And I hope that they were listening on somewhere public and laughing out loud. That's always the best, I think.
I do too, yeah.
Right. So besides this, what kind of writing have you done in the past?
My background in writing is, my artistic background is definitely within theater. So I grew up in and around theater for sure. But the main sort of writing credits that I have are a lot of personal essays and personal monologues and short stories, but mostly comedy. It's been pretty much steeped in comedy from the very beginning. Yeah.
Sweet. And do you have any inspirations when it comes to personal narrative writing, especially when it comes to comedic writing?
Yeah, I think I borrow a lot from David Sedaris. I love David Sedaris a lot, and every time I read a book by David Sedaris, I always want to just start a journal and live in Paris, and then just talk about my life and how people affect my life. But I think David Sedaris is for sure one of them. Edward Albee, I also think is a very funny playwright, and so I read a lot of Edward Albee plays.
So I could definitely see the David Sedaris influence, and I was going to say that, but I was like, let me see what Noah says first.
No, it's 100% there.
Yeah, but modern and from a different generation. But yes, if you haven't read David Sedaris, I definitely recommend. And actually, I'll go ahead and skip to this question. Actually, so the piece is brimming with hilarious moments between both characters. There's an absurdity to it, but it's very grounded. And there's also some very serious moments with the characters. For yourself, how did you find that nice balance of comedy and sincerity?
I get asked this question a lot, actually, and I never quite know what to say because I think it's part of just I'm a person that I'm a very sensitive person, and so I feel a lot. And I also think that adage of comedy is just tragedy, but speeded up is very true. And so I think if you sort of witness all of the tragedy of life and just and experience it, there are just parts of it that you can't help but laugh at. And so and I just have a mean sense of humor when it comes to tragedy, and so I just can't help but think that things are funny even when they're not supposed to necessarily be funny. And so I always try to strike a balance because I feel the best drama has moments of levity, and the best comedy is has moments that stick and are grounded. And I feel it's insincere to have things that are just or maybe not insincere, but I feel it's hard to accomplish things that don't fall into those categories at some point in the story. And so I just try to be as honest as possible and honor the comedy of a situation.
Yeah, and another great gay writer, James Baldwin, speaks about being an observer.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that's a part of where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And so where did this idea stem from?
So I actually evacuated from the Thomas Fire in 2017, and an actual chunk of this play is almost verbatim a conversation that I was having with my friend Stella, who wasn't at home, but was trying to her parents had gone out of town, and so someone was watching her parents' house, but she was the only person that was in the country, and so she was in Boston on the phone with the person who was watching her parents' house, trying to figure out where the gas line was with me while I was FaceTiming with her on the phone, and we were trying to figure out where her gas line was because we needed to turn off the gas line, but we didn't know where it was. And while I was evacuating from the fire myself, I was like, man, that was such a ludicrous conversation to be having an urgency, just being it's the gas, it's by the curb, but there's no curb. She doesn't have a curb. And so we're where do we go? And it's just the sort of I don't know. I've been wanting to write about fire for a long time, and this was sort of the first foray into that subject matter. And just because that was the only sort of snippet that kept with me for a really long time, that I just thought was a little too funny to pass up, is just like the panic.
Okay, Google, how do you find a... Okay, Google, how do you... Okay, Google.
Elise, just type it in, please. And don't take a plant.
Do not yell at me. I am stressed, okay? This is a very stressful situation. Okay, Google.
What do you think the aftermath of these two characters would lead them in after this after this incident?
You know, it's funny. I've been trying to picture whether or not I have actually wanted Elise's house to burn down or not, because like I think that that's the sort of the thing to consider, or afterwards, is like whose homes were like actually affected and to what degree, like because with fire damage, like there's like smoke damage, there's fire damage, there's just like proximity damage, there's land damage, like there's so many things that can go wrong. And Stella was fortunate, or she wasn't fortunate because part of her property burned down, but not the entirety of her property burned down. And I was very fortunate in that the fire didn't go anywhere near my house. But I don't know, there's like what I experienced when we came back after evacuating, because we had only evacuated for a day or two before coming back into the valley. And the thing that was like mostly just on my mind was like making sure that like checking in on people's homes who like couldn't come back yet, and seeing what damage was done and where like what you can do to help them recover from the damage. And like I also tried to volunteer at the Red Cross, but they did turn me away. I was very mad at them, but they turned me away from the Red Cross. But that was another thing that I was trying to do, was like help people that were suffering from like smoke inhalation and things like that. But it's weird because fires also happen for like weeks, like especially when big fires like that happen. Like we evacuated right when the fire was on the brim of the mountain that we lived close next to, and then and we were only gone for 2 days, and the fire was still around. Like it was like raining ash for like 2.5 weeks. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think it did. And what city is this in?
This was in Ojai, so in Ventura County, just east of Ventura, and it started just southeast of Ojai, like up in Upper Ojai near Santa Paula is where the Thomas Fire started, in Steckel Park, and then it like combed through it, like because the way that the wind had brought it, I still remember, because it like started there and then jumped, I don't know, it's like 70 miles, and then started another fire there. And then it spread to Santa Barbara and down to LA. It spread everywhere. It was for a very brief moment in time, it was the largest fire in California history. And then it was quickly usurped that winter by a fire in Northern California.
And I hate to use this word, but there's something very millennial about the piece, but it doesn't feel like you're mocking our generation in any way, because I think sometimes there's like this like knee jerk to be mean to millennials, and that like they don't know how to do nothing. But I think this is more of like, there's these two characters that are in these circumstances, and it, you know, plays out in the title, it plays out in the piece, where they have to just figure this out, and they never asked to be a part of that.
Yeah, totally. I think that's totally, I also feel like it is a very millennial piece, because I think it's one of those I've always, in a very mean way, have described them as two dum-dums trying to escape a fire, and but I don't really think that they're stupid or anything. I just think that they have never been set up for that, and so they're not prepared for it. And I think that that's reflective of a lot of millennial problems, is that there's a lot of problems being thrown at millennials and also Gen Z, who like don't have the tools to be able to deal with it, because it's not, the ways that we have to solve problems is different than the ways that previous generations have had to solve problems. And so I think you're totally apt in that. And I also like want to be so gentle to millennials, because I think that we're in a little bit of a sustained adolescence. A lot of our growing things are through like kind of like deep tragedies that like happen, and it's unfortunate.
Sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you. You're not a big, dumb idiot. Sorry, I'm panicking a little.
It's fine, I'm fine. I'm just frustrated because this is so dumb. Fires are so dumb, I guess.
From this piece, is there anything specific that you would like the listeners to take away?
Part of takeaway for me from, at least from evacuating the fire and like when looking at environmental justice and also looking at disaster relief, like I feel like it's so much a community effort, and it's difficult and hard and, and weird. But I do think that like you have to be able to be there for your community. And I feel like one of the things that we're seeing, especially in response to COVID, is that like there's this like weird tearing apart of community right now, where it's like everyone is sort of, I don't know if we can say fuck, but it's like fuck like other people, like I'm gonna do whatever I want to, like which I just feel like is such an odd response. It's like, why? Or I guess I don't think it's an odd response. I just think it's a tragic response to just have to resort to individualism over community. And so I think that that's probably the thing that I would hope to get away from it, is that like, or that people get away from or come away from the play with, is like a sense of camaraderie for both the characters and then also for the people around you in your life. Is that like if someone else's house was on fire, I hope that you would help them and hope that people help you, you know?
Yeah, and I think as you know, as queer folks, that's a big part of what we do, is create community and be in community. So what did you gain or learn from being a part of the ESQS workshop?
I grew up in a pretty small town, and to my knowledge, at least at the time, like I didn't go to high school with any like openly queer kids. That's not true. I did go to the high school with some openly queer kids, but like I didn't have a huge queer community either in high school or in college. I've had since then I've had a larger queer community, but it's been I think that was honestly the biggest takeaway for me, was like just being steeped in other queer writers, like and seeing the versatility of a group of queer people, like being able to write and be fucking awesome in a room is really rad. And I still talk to some of the people from the workshop here and there, and like Audrey, who they wrote an excellent ghost play in this workshop. I talk to them all the time, and I'm just like grateful to have the community of writers, as I think the sort of biggest takeaway that I got from it is just like, again, community. I'm a big community advocate.
Yeah, and that's why we do this. We had to make that transition from a physical piece to an audio play, and so doing that, were you kind of involved with the director? Did you sit in the sessions, or did you kind of let them? And Dan Lovato was the director, by the way.
Yeah. So Dan and I had a little bit of communication right at the beginning, and then I wasn't super involved after that. I mean, this is also the first time that I've sort of given something to a director and sort of let them see. Like I've always been curious about that process, and just like letting a piece of mine become someone else's piece. And so I actually still haven't heard the recording. I don't know what it sounds like, but I'm looking forward to listening to it.
Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Greg!
What happened?
I think I found it.
The gas line?
Yeah! Look! That looks like a little submarine almost, right?
Yes! Great! I think we just need a wrench. Thank God. I really didn't think... No. It'll be fine.
Victoria and Luis were Elise and Greg. I was there during the recording, with my mask on and my face shield. But from what I heard, it was very funny. And by the time this airs, you will have heard it before it ever does. So I think you will be happy with what you get to hear, and you'll be one of the first people to hear it.
Yeah, I sort of briefly met the actress because I went to one rehearsal just to sort of sit in and just see how it went. And I met the actors, and they're both really lovely people and very, very evocative. They're like very emotive, and I feel like that's all I can ask for in that piece, because that piece is, I feel like my sort of nervousness about the piece is a lot of just surrounding how fast it's supposed to be and how fast it is just like but I have full confidence in Dan and their abilities to do anything. And also Dan, when they were doing, like when we were talking on the phone, like read into parts of the piece that I just fully lied and said was on purpose, that I had no idea that was there before.
That is the job of a writer, to say, yes, that is exactly what I meant.
Yes, I was like, that interpretation that you're reading is exactly the interpretation I meant to go for.
So this will be released a little bit later, but are there any projects that you're currently working on right now to let our listeners know about?
I don't have any upcoming things necessarily, but I was involved in the with ESQS again, and work in their queer film lab, where I wrote a short film for that lab that I'm hoping go somewhere. And then I was also just involved in a show, like a virtual show that's up in Santa Barbara, that's like through Center Stage Theater. So I don't know if you can still purchase those, but I think you might still be able to have access to those links if it's called Speaking of Stories, was a thing that I was involved in there. And actually at some point, I don't have a release date yet, but at some point through Kim Maxwell Studio in Ojai, I will be releasing a comedy show through them. So be on the lookout for that.
Cool. And is it gonna be like a virtual show? Or, okay.
Yeah, cool. It's all gonna be like pre-recorded, and I have the drag queen Michelle Schacht doing a basketball tutorial for us, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, I think it should be a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that will happen at least in March, but it's been kind of a pickle to figure out.
And it's interesting too, because I think there's this idea about what, in the mainstream anyway, that what queer comedy is, or what queer entertainment is, but it's so varied, and that's what's so exciting about these pieces. It's going to be 10 in total, and yours is as queer as they come, even if it's not like, to be blatant like some of the other pieces.
It has that gay anxiety in there. I feel like that is my brand, is just gay anxiety.
There you go. So that's gay anxiety. Is that the name of the comedy show?
Yeah, pretty much.
And where can people follow you so they can find out when all this stuff is going to air?
So I'm exclusively on Instagram, as at Noah Lashly is where you can find me, and that's pretty much it. I don't have a Twitter.
It's all good, and I think you would be good at Twitter though, because I think you're insightful.
Yeah, I'm just not quippy enough. If this piece has proven anything, is that I'm verbose beyond belief.
And I appreciate. Well, okay. So from a organizer standpoint, the long title is a pain, but from a writer's point of view, I enjoy it immensely. So from my producer side, I was like, Jesus, this is a long ass title. But from my writer side, I think it's hilarious and great.
Yeah, I fully understand that.
But we could also like hyphen, or what is an acronym? WWYCMW, right? We could do that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's less complicated though. It's more complicated.
True. Bad Bunny does that to his albums, so like
that's true.
Be like Bad Bunny. There you
go.
Yeah. Sweet. So Noah Lashly, and there's no like underscores, dashes, or anything like that.
That's just that. Yeah.
Okay. So Noah Lashly, follow. Any final words that you would like to impart on the listeners out there, or to your fellow cohort?
I love them all. I'm so excited to see, or rather listen to everyone's pieces. I'm just greatly looking forward to it.
Awesome. So thank you for joining us, Noah. And thank you, listeners, for joining the Eastside Queer Stories. And make sure to follow Noah at Noah Lashly. And make sure to subscribe to this podcast, because we got plenty more stories to go.
Yeah, do it.
Do it now.